everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sarah and Adam Show. I'm here with my co-host that you may imagine, as you might imagine, whose name is Sarah. How are you today, Sarah?
I'm good. How are you?
I don't know. I just blundered my way through that
I was
introduction.
wondering I was wondering where you were going with it.
Uh, Stop judging me.
Sorry. Carry on.
we all we all make mistakes. Okay, Sarah.
It's true. Carry on.
Not you. Not today. You're just like full of like perfection, but you know.
My ego has swelled today.
I know, you've turned into a monster.
Fitting.
What's that?
I said that's fitting
Why?
because we're going to talk about a whole bunch of shows that involve monsters
Do they?
to some extent.
Okay. Okay, sure. So yeah, wait, what do we got today to talk about, Sarah? We've got a lot of interesting stuff, but I'll let you
Oh.
explain it away.
Okay, so there's a new Rings of Power trailer out. I guess is this like the official trailer and what we had before was just like teaser trailers? What's the difference?
So teasers are mostly just like little shots, like to hype you. You're like, oh, was that this character? Oh, I think I recognize this.
Mm-hmm.
And then the trailer is gonna show like more storyline aspects. I think it's more like an introduction to, okay, so there's a war going on, or there's a bad guy that we have to face, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the difference, I think, between teasers and trailers. Even though sometimes teasers are longer than trailers, I think it's just the content type that's involved. But this one, I think they were just calling it the final trailer. I think the official trailer came out a few weeks ago, like maybe even a month ago.
Okay. But there's a new one, basically. There's a new trailer.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then we both watched the second episode of She-Hulk.
Hmm.
And we both... Did you watch... You did watch House of Dragon. House of the Dragon.
Yeah, watch the Dragon show.
The
The Dragon
Dragon show.
thing.
We've...
That's what the
we've...
Dragon thing.
We both watched episode 1 of that. Because obviously there's only one episode, so...
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, we could talk about all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Then we could talk about what books we're reading.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, so where do you want to start?
Well, so let's talk about the trailer, because I have to say, I'm out of all the shows, I am the most hyped about Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings, and I just did it again. I keep calling it Lord of the Rings. It's Rings of Power, or the Rings of Power.
Mm-hmm.
Trop. You could call it Trop.
Yeah.
Rings of Power. Or Rop. Neither of them sound that compelling, but
No.
I'm super compelled by it. Like I'm so excited for it. And then now there's reviews about it that everyone says it's amazing, which everyone said that all the Star Wars movies from the sequels were amazing, and they were much more mixed bags than the reviews ended up.
Mm-hmm.
The initial ended up giving. So you got to take those with grains of salt, but at the same time, the encouraging part is that they're all saying like the visuals are amazing, and like the things you might expect, like the stories still, like there's the scope of world building and stuff. It just takes so long to introduce everyone to everything that they're still not sure even after 2 episodes. So yeah, what things were interesting to you in the trailer, though? I'm curious to know, like, as a person who isn't as initiated into the second age of Lord of the Rings, of Middle Earth, what's your
Um,
thought?
so I thought with this trailer, it felt more like they were highlighting different characters in the story, and this sounds really weird, but it almost felt like when you start a video game and you're supposed to pick which character you want to play and you have all of these different storylines you can follow. It kind of felt like a little bit like that, where you have all of these different characters being introduced, because they're also narrating this whole like overarching storyline, and it almost felt like you were seeing like a little bit into each of these characters' paths, and like obviously we're gonna get to see all of it and follow all of them. But it felt a little bit like that in a way. That probably sounds weird.
I mean, I'm not unused to weird things being discussed by you. So, no, I get what you're saying though. So, I mean, and that's the thing that's kind of to the point that I was saying of like it's gonna take a while for us to really understand, like for them to lay the foundation of what we're watching.
So, okay, so actually this is a better way of explaining it, maybe. The past trailers and the past teasers have felt more like they were highlighting the story. Like, it's about the rings being created and how, like, the war and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas this trailer felt like it focused more on those individual characters. And to me, I was like, okay, so that's going to be a main I'm assuming that's going to be a main character. That's going to be a main character. That's going to be, like, it made me really focus on those particular people, which means that I'm probably going to be focusing on them when the show starts and wanting to know about them in particular.
Yeah, man, there's so many interesting things that are going to be happening. Second age stuff. This one has a picture of Isildur.
Who's that?
So Isildur is the guy. You probably saw a lot of him in Fellowship of the Ring, actually, in the introductory parts, where so once the heroes eventually beat Sauron in the Second Age, Isildur is the one who at the last minute just barely is able to like cut the ring off of Sauron's hand.
Okay.
And then Elrond is like, throw it in the fire, and Isildur is like, no, and he keeps it.
Okay, yes.
He's like the king of Gondor. He becomes the king of Gondor. He's the heir to Gondor at the time, and so yeah, he's a weak man, but he's kind of shown in the movies to be a weak man, but the truth is, like, he's actually rather heroic in the Second Age, and then just succumbs to the power of the ring like any human would.
Right. I'm gonna be real terrible with names. I already know I'm gonna be real terrible with names. I feel like, do they not show that in a flashback in Fellowship of the Ring?
Right. Yeah, they show it in the film. Yeah.
Okay. With the elf guy.
The
See, I'm telling you right now, I'm terrible with names.
You're gonna make me so sad. The elf guy. Oh my gosh.
With the dark hair.
Okay, so Elrond is his name.
Okay, so him. It was him, and I guess it was Isilrod.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like I can like see your brain just melting. Why can't we name them like John and James and like easy things like?
This isn't Harry Potter.
Anyway, my point is though, I do remember the scene that you are talking about now.
How do you remember the name Hermione?
I don't know.
Okay, so Isildur, Elrond, Galadriel.
Well, I know Galadriel. That's why I didn't say the name, because I knew it wasn't her.
Yeah, so she's in it too. She's got some stuff. Okay.
She's the only character that I will know the name of right away.
Okay. Don't. This is a sad start. Okay, but all right. So, I'm pretty excited for it though. Um,
What did you think of the trailer?
yeah. So, yeah, it looks good. There's some intriguing stuff. Like we see more of the guy you'd call Meteor Man. Oh, I don't know if you'd call him that, but like the guy. Okay, so I watched a few different like theorists who like they follow all the Lord of the Rings stuff and really pay attention to all the and so there are people who are like excited, like cautiously excited for the show, and they see him, uh they see they watch all of the trailers, I should say, sorry, and then they break them down, and so there's this constant thing that they keep showing in all the trailers where there's like some kind of meteor that falls from the sky and there's a man in it.
Okay.
And the question is, who is that man? Like, is it a man? So like in the second age, like Anatar shows up, and it's actually Sauron, but they don't know that it's Sauron. He shows up, and he's, giver of gifts, and he's, trying to ensnare the people of Middle Earth and to trick them, and it works for a large part of it. Like that's how he ends up with the rings. The elves eventually see through it, and that's how their rings aren't tainted the way the other rings are. But there's that, and so that anyways there's Anatar that's coming, and then they showed the Balrog and everything, and so the question is like, who is this person who is falling from the meteor? He's like looks like he's naked from some of the scenes, like he's just like some crazy extraterrestrial or something who came from the heavens. And so could it be Antar? Could it be the Balrog in a different form? Or so we saw him in like he's wearing like kind of rags as it turns out. And so now the theory is maybe it's like one of the wizards, like maybe it's one of the blue wizards, or maybe it's Gandalf or something like that.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So there's a few really brief scenes with him, with like with the Harfoots is what they're called, like the hobbits.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it should be interesting to see how that all plans out. So anyways, I think that the other really interesting thing, and now I'm just totally spacing on the name, but there's the Dwarf King. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but okay, so the dwarves have a ruler who they believe in completely. Forget if his name is Durin or if it's someone else, but
Maybe it's John or James.
Albert. Let's call him Albert for now. So
they believe in Albert.
yeah. Well, so here's the thing though. So they believe that each version of that dwarf, each named version of that dwarf, is actually the full reincarnation of the previous of that same entity. And so like right now they have the king, and this is part of the time compression issues that they have, like that we mentioned last time, where
Mm-hmm.
so there's Albert the Third on the throne right now, and Albert the Fourth is his son, and he's going to inherit. But the way the dwarves believe in this, that can't happen.
Oh, okay.
The fully reincarnated version, and so he couldn't, because he's not dead yet. How
Yeah.
could his reincarnated version be on this earth, on Middle Earth? So that's part of the time compression issues, and so they kind of they showed a little bit of that, and I'm intensely curious to see how. I don't know if I care that much, frankly,
Mm-hmm.
but did to see how the nerd rage goes. So
That's fair. That's interesting.
I tend to be a little less like, I'm like, well, if it makes sense in the storyline, in the narrative, I guess I don't care that much if you just mess around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the purists are like, you better not change anything Tolkien did ever.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I think like you were saying earlier, the Star Wars sequels had good reviews and then it ended up being mixed. I think maybe that's going to be the case here as well.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, the purists are just some people are gonna hate it and decide to hate. Like they've already decided to write bad reviews on it.
Yeah.
They've never done it, but decided that it's gonna suck. So, I mean, and that's just an ugly side of humanity. I've always disliked. I pre-dislike the fact that they pre-dislike this.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting though.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So I think our next episode we should have watched the first. So it's coming out. 2 full episodes are coming out on September. It should be like September 1st for us, right?
Yeah, so I'm assuming it's going to work the same way that Wheel of Time did, where it comes out on, like, the release date is September 2nd, so technically Friday. But it should hit Prime at midnight GMT time, so we would be able to watch it Thursday evening on the 1st. Yeah, so I guess it's 2 episodes next week.
Yeah, yep. So excited for that. Yeah, so we actually I've started to restructure a little bit on our Discord server, so guys go check it out. It's slowly being revamped to have places to discuss these things, and I put up a trailer page so people can post trailers in there, and then there's a place to discuss trailers as well, just trailers, and then I also made genre-specific channels for people to come and discuss. And I think we'll make spoiler genre channels as well.
Yeah.
Then, that way you can discuss the latest episode, but then you can discuss, I don't know, we'll have to figure out like what, I'd be interested to see what other people think. Like, at what point should we de-spoiler something? Like, should we wait until the full show is out and then we can have it be part of the discussion? Or, so for instance, Andor is going to, I forget how many episodes it's going to be, 12 or something.
Mm-hmm.
We wait until the final episode of Andor is out. Well, that doesn't work though, because the second the final episode of Andor is out, it's still very spoilery. In fact, it's the most spoilery because it's the finale.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just immediately make that common ground. So
yeah, I feel like it's a weird area. Because also some people don't watch it right away. They wait so that they can watch a bunch in a row.
Right. So, all right, I'll look at what some other. I mean, there's tons of Discord servers with spoiler things, like with spoiler policies. I'm sure there's things that make sense that don't take too much time and effort from us.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Yeah. So, what do you think? You want to talk about She-Hulk?
Sure.
What do you want to talk about?
No, we can talk about She-Hulk, the second episode.
Yeah, you're kind of wearing her colors a little bit.
Yeah, sort of. Not intentionally.
Okay.
Where do you want to start with this episode?
I want to hear what your thoughts. So we ended. You and I agreed last time that she needs character development.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this one took some turns that I thought were interesting. I haven't quite processed all of them, frankly, because I just watched it a couple hours ago. So, what were your thoughts this time? Did you like it as much? You were overflowing with praise last time, and which I thought was great. I loved how enthusiastic you were.
Mm-hmm.
Was this one good to you? It's as exciting?
I still really liked it. I feel like I don't know if I'm just reading into it already like too much or what the deal is. I feel like there's not necessarily going to be like a quote unquote bad guy or enemy yet, other than maybe that like influencer. I already forgot her character name, the girl that shows up in the court at the end of the first episode. But it doesn't feel like they're setting it up necessarily for there to be like a bad guy that she has to take down or something. It almost feels like, at least so far in these first 2 episodes, the challenges that she's facing in her personal life and in society is what like the bad guy is. Like it feels like that's what her struggle is going to be, is overcoming all of that.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like the prejudice or bias that people are throwing at her.
Yeah, so I thought this episode was interesting. So I still really enjoy the breaking the fourth wall bit. I think that is hilarious. It makes it feel more. It makes it feel more like obviously comedic, but less. It feels like it's not taking itself too seriously. Like they're tackling serious topics and serious, like to me, it feels like serious societal topics, but they're also able to poke fun, so it's kind of a good balance. I found it very entertaining and kind of like spot on that she now can't keep a job, and that the only people who will hire her are essentially using her.
Yeah, they want a mascot. They don't want a strategist.
Right, exactly. So it felt very on the nose, and you could really like. Obviously, she's narrating it to the camera when she realizes this is happening, but it you could really like just visually see, and also like for me, I'm like I could feel her frustration there, where she was like, I have the skill to do this, and you're not letting me prove that I'm worthy of doing this. You're just
Sure.
putting me up here because I fit what you need the poster child to be.
Yeah. Oh, also she has a moment. She has a very human moment of desperation. I feel like of desperation, and she's at that bar and she's like, I can't even afford another drink, and the guy hands her a job, and she doesn't even ask anything about it. She's just like, done,
Right.
taking it,
Right.
and not even though that's like he's kind of like her enemy in a way. I think that if there's any overarching bad guy, like a guy that's just gonna be her nemesis in this, it's going to be that guy, the guy who just gave her a job.
Right.
I don't know if that's for sure the truth, but I know for sure it's the truth that's my perception. So
I could see that. Yeah. I don't know. I was watching it, and in my industry this week, there's been a lot of turmoil. There's been a lot of like people getting fired. There's been a lot of people being used, and like I was watching her have this whole struggle, and I was like, oh, this is so on the nose right now with just what's happening in my industry and with people, being promoted because they're a certain ethnicity or a certain gender. And it's exactly that of like fitting the poster child, and they're frustrated because like you want the promotion, but at the same time you want to prove that you deserve the promotion. You're not getting it because they're panhandling to you for whatever reason.
Right, like just because you want equality of opportunity for women,
right,
doesn't mean you also want them to just hire you because you're a woman. Like if they're just like, here, have this job. You're a woman. Like we have to give a job to a woman. So here,
right,
you're the only one. Like that. That's like, well.
Well, I actually had this conversation with a coworker of mine who is Muslim, and he was hired by a different company. So this was before he came to work for the company I work with. And they hired him because he's Muslim. They wanted somebody from that community to obviously go out in that community. And it's kind of an advantage because, he can speak the language, he understands the culture, like all of this kind of stuff. And then the minute he spoke out about a racist incident publicly, they fired him. Like it was they wanted the poster child without any of the drama regarding his ethnicity. Anyway, so we had this whole conversation about it. And it was exactly that, where you're like, you got this job because of what you look like, but they don't want any of the other stuff that comes with it. So it's the same idea here. Where she's getting this job and she's prepared and shows up as herself, not She-Hulk. And they're like, no. You have to be in character.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, it's just a really interesting thing. Like, what if? I mean, that's the thing that I keep thinking of from this show. Like, what if I had the ability to change my skin color from white to black or whatever, and one of the jobs I got was like, okay, we don't want you for you. Like, we're going to require that you stay white the entire time. We don't want you to be black.
Right.
Like that seems like, whoa, why would what? Like if it was just that, if it was just, you have to choose, they get to choose what color you are. Like, here, here, Adam, like, be this ethnicity. You know, and you have to stay that ethnicity if you want to stay hired with us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd want to work for them, but it would be like, there's nothing like that right now. There's no correlate that we're making a show about like She-Hulk, and like, oh, like, we have kind of like this within the world, like a plausible reason that, it's just a very interesting thing to see, to really think like it directly translates into kind of racism or whatever, but they that's not shown as exactly that. So yeah, it's just a very interesting topic.
It was also interesting too because he wants her to be She-Hulk all the time, and it's like, well, like, if she's in the office, why can't, like, why like, my immediate thought was, if you want me as She-Hulk in the courtroom because it's your gimmick, I don't need to be She-Hulk in the office. Like, there's no one here watching other than other employees in the office, and it doesn't need to be a gimmick for them. It's a gimmick for the outsiders. So it's like, it felt very manipulative and controlling and over the top. So.
Well, I know. Well, and that yeah, you're right. You're right. Like, that's exactly it. It's like, they don't like the idea of her being her own self. They like the idea of her being their creature. Mm-hmm. Like, they want to choose. Like, we don't approve of this aspect of you. We only want this aspect.
Right. Exactly. So, yeah, I did really like it though. Like, I thought it was still good. I think I am very intrigued with what direction they're going. Like, I'm trying to follow. Is it just going to be following her trying to navigate her life now with this superpower, and people knowing that she has a superpower, or is there going to be some bigger, badder thing that happens?
I was glad to see that there was finally one male that wasn't a complete doofus, complete idiot.
Which one?
Like, her dad was actually like a reasonable human being. Mm-hmm. But then every other male was like either manipulative, or he was like, oh yeah, you did the right thing, but you're fired. Like, kind of a dick move. Or, like, her cousin or whoever it is, he's like, I got promoted at Target or whatever, like, or there's like the whole like conference room of just men, and it's like, look at all those men, they're so awful. Like, I was excited to see one man that was reasonable.
They also had her one coworker come in with like that welcome gift basket and the map to the bathroom.
Okay, yeah, he was okay. I'm kind of suspicious of him. He's sus a little bit, so.
Oh, I didn't find him to be sus.
Well, he might end up being awesome. I don't know, but I was, we'll see. We'll see about him. But you're right. He was actually okay as well.
Mm-hmm. I was surprised to see Bruce Banner in it again. Minimal, but still surprising.
Oh, and I think now we're done with him.
Yeah.
But you're right. We both thought that he wouldn't be in here much, and it's true. But he's off in hyperspace now somewhere.
Yeah. So, I also enjoyed, I don't know if you caught their, like, when they were on the phone, breaking the fourth wall bit, where they acknowledged the fact that the Hulk was originally played by Edward Norton.
Oh, I must have missed that.
So she's talking about whether or not she should take on this case with Abomination, because it's a conflict of interest and all this kind of stuff, and you can tell she wants to, obviously, and Bruce can tell she wants to. And Bruce has this line where he says that this happened so long ago, I'm literally a different person now. And then
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and then she laughs, and when she laughs, she looks directly into the camera. Like,
I noticed. Yeah, I noticed that. I just didn't. Yeah,
yeah.
I knew about that thing. I just didn't connect it. So good catch.
Yeah, it's a nice little, I know, I was like, huh, clever. So,
Yeah.
and it is the thing also because, I mean, I wasn't really concerned about this, but I know some people are concerned about whether it's MCU canon for the original Hulk with Edward Norton, because obviously now it's Mark Ruffalo playing him. So it's like, is that what is? Would you consider that canon? Is it considered canon, that movie, like this whole thing in the MCU, and them acknowledging it, and then also, of course, bringing Abomination in is basically confirming that yes, it is. So
Yeah. Yeah. So this episode really felt it wasn't filler exactly.
no,
It like it needed to lay a foundation for what her future stuff is, but again, she didn't really grow in this one. You know,
right.
like which is fine. She didn't, but like she's finally been they're laying the groundwork for her to be in an awkward situation and hopefully come out on top stronger.
Right. I felt like this to me was more of like maybe they're starting to have an uptick in whatever her plot is gonna be, whatever her storyline is gonna be, but it felt like it wasn't fully like taking off yet. But it was like I'm like maybe it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think I heard that it's is going to be 8 episodes or something or 7,
That sounds right.
more than well, because I remember they were referencing an episode that was like the producers or the creators were saying something about 7 or 8 at like episode 7 or 8 something happens like they just like very obliquely reference it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. It should be interesting though to see what happens with her and yeah, I just want to see her character development. I want to see her get stronger. I don't want it to be like, oh, oh, she doesn't need to.
Right, and I don't think that's going to be the case. I think part of it is going to be, or I do think a big chunk of it is going to be her figuring out how to navigate her life in the public eye as a superhero when she doesn't want to be a superhero. She's kind of being forced into this role.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting her conversation with the Hulk of she called him and it was like she needed a process. She didn't need to actually ask for permission.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think this and this and this and this and this, and obviously like she's just like not at all until she's just said all of her things. And then he's like, "Yeah, it sounds like you're not asking for permission. Like you're just gonna do it. Just telling me you're doing it." And she's like, "Yeah, that's what it is." Like I think it kind of surprised her as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think she felt like maybe she had to ask for permission. Um, or not necessarily that she had to. I think she knew because she had that reaction right away when her boss first presented it. She was like, "This is like right away." She didn't want it. It was a conflict of interest. She would take any other case type of thing. So I think she was also struggling with the fact that she did feel that way. She probably does still feel that way a little bit, but then also it's a case she can work. She can do what she wants to do. So maybe it's a good thing if Bruce is okay with it.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I thought that there was some good character. I don't know, development isn't the right word, but I liked how he would just let it go. He was like, yeah, that's fine. And I love that she was like, don't use haikus. That's so stupid. And then Bruce was like, and he wrote me a really meaningful haiku. I was like, face.
Well, I mean,
Shown to everyone.
it's just like a nice little joke to add in, right? Like that's what I mean. Like it's serious, but it also pokes fun. So
Yeah, I like that.
yeah.
So yeah, interested to see where it goes. So as our show watching becomes more clogged, I'm gonna keep up with this as best I can. I don't know. I may end up getting behind and having to binge a couple later down the line.
Right, right, because it is going to start overlapping with, obviously Rings of Power, and then I think either Andor or Bad Batch, or both of those actually.
Yeah, Andor's coming out. It'll be in 4 weeks. So this show will start wrapping up, but it'll still be going on when Andor's here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe Bad Batch is in like the end of September too. So yeah, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to watch all of them as they come out. I'm not sure. I don't know. What about you? Like, what's your priority?
Um, I think I'll definitely make sure I watch Rings of Power. House of Dragon, I'm not sure of, which we can get into when we talk about it here. I do want to finish She-Hulk. Like I know I for sure want to watch that. So we'll see. I also like am very fortunate and can watch these shows at work. So
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
yeah, so I can multitask and get some. I can stay on top of it probably more so than most people just because of the nature of my job. So
Yeah, good. Well, that'll be nice. You can lord over maybe how much time you have.
oh,
So I guess it probably depends on which week Conquest is too. So
yeah, that's very true.
yeah,
Hmm.
the gameplay for those of you. Almost everyone who watches this probably watches probably follows us on Galaxy of Heroes. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I know what Conquest is. It's a bit game mode though that only happens half the time. So okay, shall we talk about the what's House of the Dragons? House of Dragons?
House of the Dragon,
Pod? Potted?
whatever we want to call it. The Dragon Show.
Yeah, the Dragon Show.
Yeah, let's talk about this. So this is based off, I guess it's based off the prequel for the books for the series.
Yeah, apparently he wrote a prequel book that I just didn't know existed. Like I've actually read all the Game of Thrones books.
Oh, and you didn't know that this was written.
No, I didn't actually. The thing is, I read all those books, and then I kind of just, if I'm being honest, I kind of just wrote off. Like I watched some of the show, and it wasn't really my thing. And so I just kind of like, you know what? When George the Pirate decides to write more stuff, then we can, I'll like more like if he ever writes, what's it called, like Winds of Winter or something, I forget,
Mm-hmm.
books. I'll read that, but until then, I'll just stop paying attention. So apparently, at some point, he wrote this. I don't know when he wrote it. I don't even know. Like, did he write it after book 5? Did he write it like?
I'm pretty sure it was after book 5.
Was it okay?
Yeah, so he's not finishing book 6, but he's writing prequels.
I don't know. I don't know. So, you know, I was pretty skeptical. You and I've talked about it a lot. About I wasn't sure if I was even going to watch this to begin with because I do feel like the other shows were a little bit gratuitous in a lot of different ways, and in my opinion, it had a huge amount to the narrative. But I decided this time it's going to be a very like a massively viewed show, and I just wanted to give it a chance. So watching it, and I didn't hate it this time. Like it was, there's some interesting elements. I did actually watch someone did like a 20-minute recap of like the whole book. I didn't realize that was what I was walking into, but um, so I actually knew a lot of the plot lines as I was watching. Like, oh, yeah, I know this, but just because of that one YouTube video.
So did you watch that YouTube video before you watched the episode?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Well, what I thought I was gonna watch, what I thought it was going to be, and then at the very end of it, I was like, oh, I think that was actually just like the plot of the book itself. I thought it was going to just like give like a building up, like, okay, here's the stage, like, here's all the source material that went on, the foundation. And then when you watch the first episode, it'll jump from here into that episode. But now I watched it, I'm like, oh, okay, so because I remember like now this happens and now this happens. I could predict a few of the plot points. I was like, this is weird.
Right.
But
Um,
yeah, I did research. It was like spoilery research.
okay, that's fair because like I'm curious. Do you think it changes your perspective if you know the storyline already?
Yeah, so I think that there are certain plot points that I can see building. Like I can see them setting it up, and I won't give spoilers to people who that's not what we want to do. But like there are certain points that I'm like, oh, like okay, so like a 20-minute recap can't describe everything. It gives the basic groundwork, but if it's telling the whole story, then there's going to obviously be certain things, but that they leave out. But there's certain things you can see them setting up, and you're like, oh, I can see why there's a lot of tension there.
Mm-hmm.
Later line, like I'll. It'll be interesting to be able to see, like, in a way, this is like me having read the book beforehand, and being like still maintaining that same position of, I'm the guy who's read the books, and then I have to see everything through that lens. So I don't know, in a way that's fun.
Right. That's a good point. Because like I haven't read the book, but I know that it's based on obviously the prequel, and I know, I mean, the whole premise is it's based on the Targaryen war and how they fall. So I'm sure we can guess what's going to happen.
Hmm?
Just based on, I mean, even if you didn't know that, like even if all you knew going into it was it's a Game of Thrones spin-off or a Game of Thrones type prequel about the Targaryens, I think you can see where it's headed just off after the first episode.
Sure. Well, I mean, I like one of the very first things they even say is they realized that the only thing that could beat the Targaryens
Mm-hmm.
were themselves. Like pretty clearly laying the groundwork for that. And then one thing I did like, and it was toward the end of the episode, was how he's telling the heir about the White Walker threat, which is going to happen in 200 years.
Yeah. It was a really nice way to like tie it into Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I thought that was nice. Like that was a good way to make it all like, oh, this is kind of like actually kind of relevant. It's not just because otherwise you could almost just feel like, even though the same, that like it was kind of fun to see like everyone was swearing to the heir, and it's like, oh, the Baratheon line and the Stark line,
Mm-hmm.
and they had all the different, well, some of them are different, I guess, but like it was just kind of nice to see like, oh, like even 200 years prior, these factions are still exist, they're just different.
Right. Right. Exactly. So, um, I felt like for me, I didn't really get attached. I don't even want to say attached, but I didn't get intrigued by the show until almost the end of the episode.
Yeah, I didn't like anyone.
I didn't like anyone. I thought Damon was, or Damon, however we're supposed to say it, I thought he was aggressive. I thought he was spiteful. I thought he was like this vindictive. Like, I was just like, I don't like you. And I know, which is, I was reading today that people are loving his character. Like, they're just like, yes, this is like what you want to see in Game of Thrones. And I was like, I don't like this guy. Like, I actually struck. And it for me, it was a struggle because I really like Matt Smith as an actor, and he's always played really lovable characters. And now I'm like seeing him in this role that's so jarring for that I'm like, oh, I don't enjoy this. I thought he's excessively violent, like obscenely violent. I was just like, I do not enjoy. But once they started tying it in to like the prophecy and the White Walkers, and you kind of see like everything shifting, then I was kind of like, okay, I can follow where you're going. I can see who I will end up liking. So like I do like Raynara. I think that's how you say her name.
I just want to call her like Rhaenyra's, like Ryan Daenerys.
Right? I'm like, so I do.
They look so similar.
They do look so similar. So I do like her, but I didn't like her for like the first little bit of the episode. I was kind of like, oh, you're kind of boring and quiet and like whatever. Not that I wrote her off. She just didn't really stick out. But
yeah, dragon.
Yeah. So, but yeah. Other than her, like I didn't really like anybody.
Yeah. Well, so here's one thing that I like was like I did like that the Daemon character. Like so there was this moment where it shows his familial loyalty. It's not like Scar in Lion King where he's clearly not loyal to Mufasa. You know what I'm saying? Like they're related, but he has no regard for Mufasa. Like there's this moment where they're at the funeral and everyone, like the king can't do anything. He's just totally beside himself, just freaking out, which I can totally get. And our town, whatever her name is,
our town, Renara.
Okay. She can't do it. Like she's just like hurt as well. And the only one who shows any semblance of like, you know, duty and stuff like is Amen, whatever his name is. You know, like, and he's like, your father needs you more than ever right now. Like he doesn't just say go do it, you stupid girl. Like he doesn't resort to threats. He's like, he needs you. Like this is an important. He realizes his brother's need and actually takes steps toward, you know, like meeting it just one time. So I thought there was a little glimmer of that, but I don't know. At the same time, you're right. Like he's just like he's excessively violent. I thought it was so dumb. Can I just say this? I thought the tournament was like the dumbest thing. It's like, okay, you unhorsed this guy. Right, so he beats you. He knocks you off his horse, and then if you lose, you can just choose to deny the results and decide to like fight one-on-one and potentially just kill the other person. Like I thought that was the stupidest thing ever. Like they're trying to train knights. They're just watching people just like getting killed and like. And there's nothing. You don't need like sportsmanship back in this time, but at the same time, it's like, do you really want your whole kingdom to be bereft of their like most trained fighters? You know, like the people who are like. I just thought it was so stupid. The final fight between him and that other dude got dehorsed, and the other guy's still on his horse. Like, guy who's still on the horse should win. He's the winner, right? Like. He won. He should just stay on his horse, and if the guy wants to fight, he should just run the guy down with his horse. That's what he should do.
It was so like that tournament was the only part of the entire episode where I was actively turning away from the screen and watching like through my fingers because it was so excessively violent. It didn't, and you could portray that violence. Actually, sorry, no. I also turned away at the beginning when Damon is like slaughtering all of these
Yeah.
criminals basically, chopping off their hands and all that kind of stuff. And
And their fault.
ugh, so like you can portray that and that he's doing that without actually like I don't need some to watch someone getting an axe into their skull and like watching it clawed open. Like I don't need to see that. I don't need to have that visual burned into my brain. And there's a way to portray that these things are happening without actually visually showing it. And this is the one thing that I really struggle with this show and with Game of Thrones was just how much violence that they showed. I just don't think it's necessary. I will say I read an article and I really liked this. One of the editors, the main editors of the show, actually made the decision to edit that scene, the tournament scene, and the impromptu like C-section type scene as juxtaposed. So it sounds like they were supposed to be separate events. And instead the editor decided that they should go back and forth between them. Which I thought was a really good thing because you're showing two different struggles, you're showing two different fights. It also just gave me a little bit of a break from the tournament. I was like, I don't want to see this. So I thought that was really cool. But I don't know if I agree with you about his familial loyalty.
Well, hold on. Can we go back to the tournament and the
Yeah.
stuff? I want to hear more about the familiar. I want to broach that too, but I just want to say like the tournament part. I think I have more of a stomach for some violence and stuff. I mean, I watched Braveheart all the time and The Patriot and Gladiator, and there's a lot of gratuitous violence that I've never like. That's not why I watch it. That's not something that I'm that interested in. At the same time, this was a lot for me. Even I was just like, ugh. And then honestly, like, so I have two kids, and I helped with the whole birthing process and everything, and so I know how that is, and I just felt my stomach churning during the C-section parts. I was just like, you know, I acknowledge that it was, like there are certain parts of it that we shouldn't ignore. Like the narratively, I think that part, like that played a part. I didn't like how graphic that part was either. Like you could hear them like starting to cut into her, and it was like, I don't know. It was disturbing on a level that I don't feel like I needed.
Mm-hmm.
I did think it was an interesting thing, and like, it did show what it really shows us, they've shown the show a few different times of like, it's a man's world, clearly, because,
Right.
They choose the male heir. Everyone wants to keep men in power, etc. And then, at the very start, and then this time it's also like, there comes a time in a woman's birthing when a man has to make an impossible decision.
Right. And
he decides whether the C-section happens.
Well, it's not even that he decides. It's also he decides and he doesn't tell her.
Right.
He makes the decision and then doesn't tell her that he is choosing to let her die.
Yeah, which is, yeah, I don't like that. That makes me uncomfortable, but in a way that's like, well, okay, like, it sets the stage, I guess. Like,
it does.
The idea, it sets the stage. It's not comfortable. It's not something I love. At the same time, I just thought they didn't need to be as graphic about it as they were, frankly.
Right. I will say that they did screen test that scene with women. And all of the women, apparently, the majority of the women who saw it did say that it was acceptable and that they actually thought it needed more.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I just didn't like it. It
Yeah.
made me uncomfortable. So
Which,
maybe that shows maybe that shows that I'm an evil man or something, but it made me feel uncomfortable for sure.
yeah, which is totally fair. And like, I mean, like, I didn't feel comfortable watching the violence. I felt more comfortable watching her like impromptu C-section, knowing that she was going to die, um, than I did watching the tournament.
Yuck.
So
Anyway, let's go back to the familial loyalty. I want to hear this.
yeah, so I see what you're saying, and I did notice that he was like, hey, like you need to like get the dragon to come down, and she does eventually like say Dracarys, right? Um, but it almost felt like to me, I was like, maybe it is a little bit of a familial loyalty, but it's also I don't trust his familial loyalty because to me, I'm like, he's doing that, but he also knows the male heir is dead. He's now the male heir again. Like he knows this. So it's like, hey, let's go. Like let's wrap this up so I can go celebrate at my orgy and talk about how like the heir is dead now, right? Like it felt to like that's the kind of vibe that I get from him is more of a like it's a performative familial loyalty.
Yeah, okay.
Like it didn't feel like a genuine thing. It felt like he's doing it so it looks good, but it's not how he actually feels.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it needs to be explored further.
Totally. Absolutely. I mean, we'll obviously know more as we see what happens, but
And I have a glimmer of kind of the things that are going to happen, but I don't remember exactly what their relationship is going to be. You know, watching that YouTube video, so I'm intrigued to see it too. Plus, they also they've taken liberties with the text before, like just because the book was a certain way doesn't mean that the show has to be a certain way. In fact, I would say that they should change a few things here and there just to make it a little different. I mean, it's you know, whether or not you love the Wheel of Time rendition, which I didn't really, it was a little bit fun to see a different version here and there. Like, oh, okay, like they chose to do this time. That's actually okay. That's fine. You know. So I don't necessarily mind that. I thought the dragons were well done. I thought that the CGI was good for them.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I thought it was cool just to see it out in the open as well because that obviously was very different from what we were seeing with Game of Thrones, especially like at the beginning of Game of Thrones before the dragons are even hatched or grown or anything like that. So it was nice to see that this was just like this is how they are. This is how they exist, and dragons are a part of the life.
Yeah, I like, and it also opens the door for them to make a prequel to the prequel, like to show how they did get the dragons in the first place.
Totally.
So, and that might be interesting too. One thing I did want to just say, like, I appreciated, one of the things that's been highly distracting to me in past Game of Thrones things is all of the different sex scenes, and I've always thought that, whereas sex is a part of, the human condition, and that's part of, life, you can express that without having to be too graphic about it or whatever. This is my opinion, of course, but the gratuity of that whole aspect has always been really distracting to me in the books too, and because other authors cover it the same topics in ways that I'm like, oh, like that was actually tastefully done to my own sensibilities, and I thought I appreciated this episode did not overemphasize that aspect. Like, yes, there was in there, but it was an acceptable level in my opinion. So
And I feel like also what was there, because so correct me if I'm wrong, but everything that was there as like part of the sexual storyline had Damon in it, if I'm correct. I'm pretty sure,
But yeah, that I can think
right?
of. Sure. Yeah, like,
Um, and I feel like that just like to me, I was like, okay, like he's clearly a playboy, like that's his thing. He is the next in line heir. He is, and he's flexing that and is like that's how I took it. But I do agree. I didn't find it to be over the top or like nonstop or anything like that. So, I think I don't know. I think a lot of actors, like just to speak about it in general, I think a lot of actors are kind of being like, hey, like this is a little bit much, like maybe we can dial it back kind of thing. And I think that that's probably helping it not be so gratuitous. Um, so yeah, I thought that the violence was way more gratuitous in this episode.
uh, by far, I agree. Like yeah, like this was, and to me, I know that other people are gonna have different levels of, preference or whatever, and I'm not trying to preach here, but
Mm-hmm.
for my own personal standards and values or whatever you want to call them, like I went into this expecting like, okay, this might be the only episode I'll watch, because if it's too much of that, like that's just not a thing I need to invite into my life necessarily, on a consistent basis. But I watched it again. I'll watch another one. But like you said, like if it continues to be this violent, that might be the thing that might just be like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to see someone's like testicles being chopped out or whatever. Like it's just not
Right.
something, like what part of the narrative needs me to see that, really, like
Yeah.
uh, you know, maybe seeing from a far distance, like, oh, maybe that could be what it is. I have no idea. It's just a big pile of parts. Like they could have done it in a way that wasn't so like, ugh. So
Well,
anyways.
I'm just trying to think of when they did it in Game of Thrones with Reek. And I'm pretty sure it was not that graphic. Like, I don't even think we saw it. I think we knew what was happening. But I don't think. Fairly. I feel like I have to rewatch the episode, honestly. But I'm fairly confident we did not see it.
Okay. Yeah, and that doesn't sound like an episode. I mean, I probably watched 3 episodes total of Game of Thrones before I was like, not a thing I didn't necessarily need. Plenty of other things to watch and do.
Mm-hmm. So, anyway. Yeah. I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm definitely intrigued by the storyline. Just because I want to see, like, how this clash sort of happens and how it builds. Um, but yeah, I agree. I think if it's still pretty, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to watch it. Like I cannot unsee, like that image of the axe going into the guy's face. Like I can't get that out of my brain.
Yeah, and that's fair. Or maybe it's unfair, but I think your take on it is certainly something that, I mean, it's worth noting. You know, we'll see. I do think that a lot of times the first episode oversells things. So
Right.
hopefully they tone it down a little. I know that I watched a thing, like the very end part, like they were kind of interviewing people and stuff, and they were like, well, we wanted to show in this episode like how far Game of Thrones can go, or they said something to that effect. What it's capable of, or not Game of Thrones, but how, Dragon show is capable.
Right.
How much damage Albert can do.
What can happen here?
I just noticed that you're not using, you weren't complaining about the lack of common good names, boring names for this show as opposed to Lord of the Rings.
I only know like two of them.
That's fair. Okay.
Like, could not tell you the king's name.
Viserys, I think.
Isn't that Daenerys' brother?
I don't know. I don't know.
Um,
I thought it starts with a V though.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it starts with a V. but
I no.
could
Town.
could not tell you. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, the the awesome thing about Game of Thrones stuff is all the political intrigue, and that's when it's best for me
Mm-hmm.
is when they're all scheming and play and counterplay,
Mm-hmm.
and like and twists and turns, but not just to shock me. Like the shocking parts, all for me, I was always like, that wasn't narratively interesting. They just wanted me to feel sad, you know?
Well, and it's interesting too because in Game of Thrones, like in Game of Thrones, not Dragon Show, it's all between the houses, right? And you're gonna see it here, but it's gonna be within one family.
Well, you could kind of tell it was a Corliss,
Mm-hmm.
the guy who married the like the woman who had the claim to the throne.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could tell he's like kind of poised to be a player in the
Right.
politics of it. Like they emphasized him just a little too much. Like there were some of the other people in the council. I was like, oh, I don't have any idea who that guy is. Like we know who the Hand is, and we know who Corliss is, and then yeah, you're right. The rest of them are Targaryens.
Right. Like it's gonna be a lot of internal uh, struggle, political breakdown, familial breakdown.
Yeah, I. So when we turn this off, you'll have to tell me what the fate of Jaime Lannister was in the show. I never found out. I'm
Oh,
curious.
okay. Cool. I'll tell you.
Oh, spoiler-ish. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I care, but I don't know. So I thought this was interesting. I liked it more than I thought I would, despite the violence and stuff. Yeah. So okay. Moving into next week, which one are you looking forward to most? She-Hulk or Dragon Show?
Oh, okay. Not Rings of Power.
Well, yeah, because we don't know what to expect. Like that's new material. Like
Okay.
so, just between those two shows, which one are you like? Oh man, I want to find out what happens next.
Honestly, She-Hulk.
Okay,
Yeah. What about you?
I think Dragon Show a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I think only because Dragon Show didn't really hook me right away until the end. And you can kind of tell where they're going with it. It's just a matter of how you get there. Whereas with She-Hulk, I'm like, where are you going?
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just I've had a few misgivings in She-Hulk of like it just feels like they're treating they're doing a lot of males a disservice, like just to make a point, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
and that just a little bit like maybe I don't know. Like I'll still watch it. I'm fine. I just want to, you know, I'm just less interested in that than the political machinations in Dragon Show. And of course, I'm probably like orders of magnitude more excited for Lord of the Rings. So
Right.
Rings of. So that being said, last segment. Do you want to talk about books? Like, what are you doing with books?
Yeah.
You still plugging away?
I'm still plugging away. I think I started chapter 22 today. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure.
You said you were in the 20s last time, so you're.
Or maybe I'm not in 20. They're long chapters though.
Sometimes they are, yeah.
Let me double check. I can tell you right now where I am because I was listening on my way home. Yeah, I'm almost at the end of chapter 22.
Okay. Have you had an Adolin perspective yet?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Well,
No. I'm still Kaladin and talking about like the bridge and like rationing his food and all that kind of stuff.
okay. Okay. Cool. So have you had a Dalinar perspective yet?
Dalinar, I'm in the Kaladin I think I'm in the Kaladin perspective.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Um, right on.
Yeah, because that was today's bit was, he has all these people injured that are trying to heal up, and he can't get enough food for himself plus them.
Right. Yeah, that's a serious issue if you're on a bridge. Um,
Well, that's how he made it sound. So,
yeah. Yeah. So Sanderson, he's a magic character. So I ended up deciding. I know that there was some chat on our Discord about, um, that people were suggesting things I could read for Tolkien, and I'll probably get there at some point. Right now, I did choose the Star Wars one. I chose to go Heir to the Empire, so I think I'm about 4 hours away from done with that. So I should be able to be done with that this weekend and move on to Dark Force Rising, the second book in the Thrawn trilogy, the decanonized Thrawn trilogy.
right, this is the older one, right?
Yeah, and what I'm learning is that Thrawn is a little bit more brutal
Oh, okay.
than he was in like the Disney version of Thrawn.
Mm-hmm. And the newer one.
Yeah, I like it, and he shows a little bit more emotion, like
Mm-hmm.
more sardonic. Like he just kills people in cold blood sometimes, like more of an evil villain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
I think it is. Like just seeing the note, because I recently reread the Thrawn book, like the new canon version of Thrawn,
Yeah.
and he is very different. You know.
Well, I remember when I read that one. I haven't finished that series yet, but when I read that one, I was like, it was cool to hear like his like from Thrawn's perspective. But I remember thinking, I was like, he's very like almost robotic and cold, and so it's interesting to me that you're saying he has more emotions in the older one.
I mean, in the older one, he's still a little, he's still pretty cold and clinical about things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a certain amount of like he can be sarcastic, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's. I feel like he's a more complete character in the sense that, like in the book, in the new ones, he's really like they make him egregiously bad at politics,
Right.
and in in the older ones, he's not nearly as inept.
Okay. Okay. That's a pretty big difference, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is a big difference. Like in the new ones, they wanted him to have a very obvious weakness, so he wasn't overpowered. This one, they're like, yeah, he's just basically good at everything.
Right. Right. Makes sense.
Which we kind of needed a villain like that. I mean, Thrawn was such a cool one because he's so, you know, he's not personally powerful, but he's so good. He's got so many cool different things going on that just messes with people, and you can't compete with that level of brilliance unless you have heroes who can, thwart him through their own personal heroics. He's relying on other people to do things, and he can never level someone up high enough to match what Luke Skywalker can do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really liked his like the book that I did read from that series. So because I thought he was an interesting character. So I think I feel like maybe I would like the older one. I don't know.
Probably, yeah, they're good. I like them. Like it's an interesting thing because the one that you read, the Thrawn book, it's about Thrawn and
Yeah.
and his buddy, it's Sherlock and Watson. In these other ones, Thrawn is a big part of it, but he gets less screen time than like Luke Skywalker or Han Solo or Leia. Like they all have huge points of view. Like they use, and in the new Thrawn book is they just not in there at all.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, they're not. You're right. But they're in the old one.
Right? Yeah, they're
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Like Luke just went back to Dagobah to check out the dark side cave.
Huh.
And like it's just so interesting because it's all written before they knew anything about episodes 1, 2, and 3. Like they hadn't come out yet, so like they're talking about like during the Clone Wars, and they're kind of like speculating. And one of the things I thought was interesting. So in this one, they're saying that Yoda only survived from the Empire or Emperor's like Invader's purge of the Jedi because he found like he went and killed like a dark Jedi that was a dark Jedi during the Clone Wars. This is all all speculation stuff. Um, so we went to Dagobah, hunted that guy down, and killed him, and then that created the dark side cave.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a dark Jedi master. And then Yoda was able to live in the shadow of that, and it kind of was like a positive and negative, like canceling each other out. So then Palpatine and Vader couldn't sense his presence, so that's how he was able to avoid detection.
Mm-hmm. So they have this whole like speculation thing in there.
Yeah, like that's why Yoda was able to stay alive for so long, and Dagobah, like I don't know, there's something just so charming about people who wrote Star Wars books based off of just episodes 4, 5, and 6.
Right. Yeah, and just expand the world how they see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's fun. So, yeah, anyways, we could probably call it good. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I think
Oh,
that's I think that's it.
yeah, so next week we might talk about 3 shows.
We might only talk about one.
Oh yeah, 2 episodes of Lord of the Rings. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm nervous is what I am. I'm like, I hope I like it. I really do hope I like it.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. I have
Yeah,
faith.
good. Well, thanks. You just recently watched Two Towers, right?
I did. I watched the Two Towers this week. So I just got to watch the third one, which I will probably do. I don't I don't know when I'm going to be able to do that actually, but I wanted to watch it before I watched
Mm,
Rings of Power, but I don't know if I'm going to have time. We'll see.
we will. All right, so yeah, guys, thanks for watching, for listening, whatever you're doing. And I hope you find shade somewhere.
Awesome. Cool. So we will see you next week.